Whoa, there's already one person waiting? Hey, that's pretty. First time for everything. Um, well, I didn't expect that, but I'll just go ahead and warm up like I was planning to do anyway. And then I'll go on to the topic at hand. So, I'm just starting out. So I'm going to play a few scales and then an etude. Okay, this is really irritating to me. I have my camera set up within the phone's system to not mirror me. I double checked it and it's not mirroring me. Can anybody tell me if it's mirroring? Do I look like I'm playing left-handed, like my arms are switched around? This is indeed my right arm, but in my front view camera, it looks like my left arm. So if anyone can tell me that it is not mirrored, I'd just be interested. thanks for joining. I already 2 people. Pretty unexpected for the history of this channel. But anyway, thanks for joining me. I'm just starting out. Needed to warm up a little bit before I got into things. Anybody know what that was from? Just curious. Even though it's a really well-known cello composer who wrote 40 etudes in the High School of Cello Playing, as he titled it. This particular preparatory album by David Popper is probably not so well known, but one of my teachers from early on in my cello development asked me to buy this before I had any ability of doing any of this stuff. Don't let it deceive you, though. The title, although it's called Preparatory to the High School of Cello Playing, which is Opus 76, and it's preparatory to 73, Opus 73, which is this this volume right here. Yeah, there's plenty of high playing in there. This is the prep volume. They did things on a completely different level back in the day, back in the Romantic period. I think that they were, because they didn't have all the distractions of social media and digital stuff, they somehow were able to focus better because they progressed faster in every single method that I ever looked at. Now, for the topic at hand, I wanted to talk about it and see if it would be helpful for anybody that might come across this chat about two things that came across in lessons in the last week. And namely, the one about bowing in fast music when you have to play, particularly with repeated notes, but then of course later on with separate notes, but still very fast. And this came up while I was listening to a student of mine play the Scherzo from Suzuki Volume 3. This is by Webster. Here's the beginning of it. And so on and so forth. And what usually happens, or what I usually observe when watching students whom I've been teaching for a while or maybe not, but almost inevitably you see the same thing, whether you've talked to them about it or trained them on it or not, is the student oftentimes will try to play in the most comfortable place they know, which is down here, almost under their fingers, if not under their index finger at least, and then also observe what happens here. So 2 things that are quite problematic are that you're playing down here at a very heavy part of the bow, and you're also using a pretty big joint. You know, this is a lot more big muscle. The joint is also larger. Everything is bigger because it's directly connected to your back as well. And so whenever you see anything really in life, if you think of a tree, the trunk is not the thing that's moving the most whenever a wind comes by, is it? It's always the branches move more than the trunk, and then the twigs move more than the branches. And then finally the leaves, of course, move the most. And what happens with in terms of size and weight? It keeps on getting smaller and less heavy and smaller and less heavy. So I think there's probably something to be learned from that. And indeed, whenever you watch a really fine cello player, it doesn't matter who it is, whether you like them or not, the fine cello player nearly inevitably uses less big joints and big muscles. Indeed, to play fast, I think there's no way you can do otherwise. So probably eventually you come to it on your own if you haven't been instructed on it, but it might take a little longer. So let's do a little experiment. I wanted to experiment with these two things, the shoulder and bow placement. Not the sounding point, because we know we need to be in the middle, but where on the bow. So the student defaults to this position, right? That's where the student will default to. And I'm going to turn my cello so you can see a little bit better. That's a little better, isn't it? Let's take it out to the balance point. Let's see where my balance point is. Like this. Yeah, there's the balance point. So I'm going to start here and try to stay within 2 inches of it. And I'm going to use my shoulder as well. Already I can feel like things are a lot lighter. It still feels like my shoulder is kind of pushing me around, like kind of causing me to go back and forth like a bobblehead in a way. But down here, it just feels like you're scrubbing, like you're trying to scrub the bottom of a pot that is just caked with soot from a fire stove, an actual fire stove. Whereas over here, it feels like I'm scrubbing, but I don't really have to scrub that hard. I just kind of let it happen, even though I'm using my shoulder still. Okay, now let's see if we can use only from the elbow down to the fingers, even though we're playing at the frog. Okay, there's obvious problems with that already, even if you can make your fingers and wrist do that motion. It's very constricting, right? Very, very constricting. So even if you can do it and it sounds halfway decent, it's constricting, number one. And number two, what? It sounds really clunky. Very, very clunky. Not like a scherzo at all. And by the way, it's marked piano as the dynamic, so we don't want that. Now, if we combine those two things where we're playing at the balance point, minimal, that's the minimum distance away from the frog, I would say. At least for starters, for students. You know, if you're a professional cellist, probably you're going to play somewhere out here, or even out here if you've really done your practice. So balance point, there's the balance point right there. Kind of like a magic spot. And I'm going to not use my shoulder anymore. I'm going to try to use as much as I can joints starting from the elbow down to the fingers. There we go. Right away, I don't have to play that much. Right away, you notice that there is a lightness and a scherzo-ness to it, which I believe is basically a joke, or it can mean joke of in some capacity. Whether or not the Italians use it that way, I don't really know because I don't speak Italian. But this is what we're taught in school, you know, and teachers will say that quite frequently. Anyway, in German, Scherz, I believe, is a joke of some sort, or like a kind of humor, some sort of humor. So that's the first thing I wanted to say. And the second part I wanted to say was about shifting. Well, before I go on to shifting, if you have anything to contribute, that'd be great. If you have any observations or some aspects of bowing that you've been having trouble with, like getting this kind of scherzo fast playing up to a faster tempo, if there's just like a cutoff point for you where you can play it this fast and you kind of get it done, you know, manage it, but it just doesn't work. Write it in the comments and see, go and practice it with reducing the amount of shoulder and reducing the amount of, or playing out in the balance point. And see what happens. And try your best. Um, yeah, I think those two things can already improve um, what you're doing. I actually don't think it. I really do know it. I have to watch myself. I tend to downplay my knowledge, um, but I really do know it. I've had plenty of experience, and I do know it. Now the second thing is about shifting. Now, shifting is an interesting thing. Like you would think that going from one place to another place is relatively straightforward, right? Okay, I'm going to be here in first position and I want to shift to fourth position. So just move your arm. And let's see, I'm gonna turn even a little bit more so you can see my left arm. This is indeed my left arm in case for whatever reason the camera is not showing me correctly, anatomically correct. I don't know why, but I have my phone setting to not mirror me, but whenever I go live stream, it does mirror me. Vibrato tips. Oh, thanks for the question. I will get to that momentarily. Let me finish this about the shifting while it's still fresh in my brain. And so, Dre Sky Party, I will be back to you in a minute. The shifting part, I always found rather a horrifying experience when I was a student. Like, I don't know why it was so difficult for me. Well, now I do know, but when I was in that situation, I couldn't figure it out. But I think one principle, just like when I said talking about trees with your bow, the smaller the part of the tree, the more it moves, right? The trunk hardly moves at all. The branches move more, and the twigs and finally the leaves move the most. The same thing happens. If you are observing yourself or someone else getting up from a chair, does anybody stand straight up without bending forward? They're just like, try to stand up using only with no inertia, right? It just, nobody does that unless they're doing exercises to purposely reduce this kind of preparatory motion. But everybody does what? Lean back and then forward, right? You get some momentum or you get some inertia worked up so that it's easier to get up off the chair. Just watch anybody do it. So why should it be any different when we're shifting? Okay, go forward? No. It will be quite clunky. You could probably get it done, but it won't have near the smoothness or fluidity to it that it would have if you prepared the motion, built up a little inertia, and then did it. So in other words, prepare. That's the operative word, is prepare. Whenever we get up off the chair, we prepare to stand up, don't we? Always prepare to stand up. Try it yourself. If you've never thought about it, I think it's going to be very surprising. Because the first time I thought about it, it was very surprising to me too, because it just doesn't register. You do it so often every single day, you don't realize that you're backing up to go forward. It is the weirdest thing. And something about where I live, when people drive over here, inevitably 99% of the time, people, when they turn left, they actually swerve to the right. I kid you not. 99% of the time, that's what they do over here where I live in the Eastern Hemisphere. It is the most bizarre thing I've ever seen. Not to mention because there's like a jillion scooters that could run into you because they're... Anyway, I won't talk about that. Now, for the shifting part, what could you do to build inertia? Well, you could do something very similar to standing up, where you lean back and then lean forward, then you stand up. So if you want to go to a higher position, why not do something to get the motion started? Dip your elbow down. At least you would have some motion, right? At least motion would be available to you. Much better than going from a dead start. I mean, the same thing could be said if you watch a runner. go to YouTube right now and type in sprint or 200-meter race or whatever. When they are on their chocks, getting ready to go, yes, they are still, but I bet you quite a lot of money, not really, but you know what I mean, that there's something in their muscles, in their bodies, and you probably might even see a slight motion somewhere right before they race. They have to tense muscles somewhere. Something has to be ready to go and prepared. Okay, so here, let's hear it. Let's hear the shift from first finger in the first position to first finger in the fourth position. I'm going to do it without preparing anything. It's kind of hard for me to do it, but let's see if we can do it again. This is with preparation. You see, I can do it without preparing, but it sounds clunky to me. Does it sound clunky to you? Now here's with preparation. Here, I'll do it with a slur. Preparation. It just seems smoother to me. A whole lot smoother. Now I'm gonna play. I'll get to your vibrato tip, Dre Sky Party. Just bear with me. I had these thoughts in my brain, and I really want to get them out here. Now I'm gonna play something from this. I don't know if it's internet sensation, viral video or not, but it's called 16th Notes, and it's a pianist that just like plays crazy notes all over the place, and it sounds really cool. But also there's a cello obligato or melody to it. Rather, not obligato. And this chromatic section, is like very, very fast, and it needs to be swift, it needs to be fluid. If you don't have inertia, if you don't already have that motion going, it can be very clunky. See? Somehow you have to get to the point where the inertia helps get things started. So you prepare. I don't know did I say that right? Anyway, prepare is definitely a right word in this case. So, do you have something in your shifting that just feels a little too mechanical, too clunky? I challenge you to try that out. Just as weird as it feels, and as even if you don't notice any great cellist really doing any of this flapping your wings kind of thing, just try it out. Just by yourself so no one can see you. Try it out and get back to me. Tell you what you think. All right. Hopefully you are still around, Dre Sky Party. Here's my vibrato tip. When you are practicing vibrato, if you've already thought about this, just let me know. But follow your fingernail. Follow the pathway of your fingernail. My fingernails are below the tips of my fingers, and they are definitely curved. Probably everybody's are, at least most people's have this kind of this arch or arc. It's a half moon shape. Follow your fingernail and practice going from one corner to the other. It's an exaggerated motion. Oh, good, you're still here. Thanks. It's an exaggerated motion, but oftentimes, if we exaggerate things in our practice, the real vibrato that you want to hear comes out a little easier, a little more natural sounding. And do that with every finger. Just explore it. I've had some very fine teachers, very, very fine teachers. let's see, I don't think I've ever had any famous teachers, but very fine nonetheless, that are incredibly fine players, starting starting with my teacher in high school, and then my first teacher in college, second teacher in college, and my teacher, a couple of other teachers in between. Now, particularly, I will cite the last teacher I've ever had, who was my professor in my master's degree. Fine, fine cellist. Um, Hopefully, I did not upset him too awful much. I really wish I had been a better person back then. But better self-control over my emotions. But anyway, I could have learned so much more from him. He had this incredible way of holding his left hand that would make it look like he was part of the cello somehow. Everything about him just felt like it was part of the cello. And very relaxed. Oh my goodness, the way that he vibrato just, I practiced quite a lot, and I tried to get to what he was doing on my own. Well, I wouldn't do wrist if this is what you're talking about. Wrist, every time we involve the wrist, in my experience, every time we involve the wrist in our left hands, it alters the way the fingers are approaching the string. I mean, it doesn't matter if you're twisting it left, right, down, up. It doesn't really matter too much. If you move your wrist too much, the way that the fingers approach the string changes. The angle changes, what part of the tip you're playing on changes. And what do you have to do as a result? You have to reconfigure how to play the note. And so if you can reduce the amount of reconfiguring that you do while you're playing, I think the better. I think you'll find that almost every situation is better off once you get used to it. I mean, you do need to get used to it because it's probably pretty awkward. Well, I thank you. I hope it helps, and if it does help, come back and write a comment and say, "Oh, that was terrible. It didn't work for me at all," or "It helped a little bit," or "Yeah, it was great." That'd be whatever the result is. But I encourage you, give it a real go, like a week's worth of practice, not just one time. Oh, it doesn't work, because every time that happens, anyway, yeah, give it a serious go. A week's worth, I would encourage. Beethoven. I haven't practiced Beethoven for years, actually. And to be honest, I had my Beethoven out, including the sets of variations, and I was thinking about playing through some because I really need to review all of the great music that I didn't practice for 5 years. Anyway, here's the ubiquitous Henley edition. At least it was in my day. And I'm going to use this anyway, even though it's a publication. So yeah, I'll play some Beethoven. How's that? I will play some Beethoven. I love Beethoven. And every time I play Beethoven, I kind of feel like I'm a strong man. Kind of make believe that I'm a very strong person. I don't know, it's kind of a funny way to think probably, but everybody has their funny things about them. Even if you don't think so, you probably do. I don't think anybody's exempt. But anyway, let me go to something that I'm... yeah. I'm not going to promise any... I'm getting back into shape. I'll try not to make too many excuses and put myself down. But I am still finding my fingers after 5 years of basically not playing seriously. Teaching, yeah, teaching quite a lot. Playing, yeah, actually I play a lot, probably 2 to 3 hours every day, but not nearly as much as I used to. Do I dare play it? I hope you don't regret this. Please don't give me a thumbs down for playing this. Okay, I've done worse before, so I'll do it anyway. Yeah. Okay, this is number 1, Sonata number 1. I'll give it a go. It's almost like a foreign world now because I haven't played it for so long. Right before I moved here to this location, I played a concert in which I was very fortunate to have a fine pianist play one of the variations, one of the sets of variations with me on See the Conquering Hero Comes. Okay, Sonata number 1 in F major, just some excerpts here and there. This is the very first classical sonata of great depth that I ever played right here. Sorry. Oh, it's just not gonna happen. Not gonna happen. Yeah. So I'm gonna just stop right there because it is very messy, and I know I'm not like the greatest player ever, but I'm super self-conscious. So, um, oh, I hope that's good. I really hope that's a good thing, and not like, oh, why are you playing that right now? Anyway, it doesn't matter that much. I'm super self-conscious, and I want to play more. Do I do orchestral? Well, yeah, I used to be a quite a busy orchestral player. Never played in any real big orchestras. I guess the biggest one I ever played in was a summer festival 2 summers in a row in Graz, Austria. And a lot of fine players, lots of really good experience. That was a lot of fun. Just played some incredibly good music in crazy, awesome locations. But surprisingly, I have found myself coaching high school students in particular, um, and even a few adults I've been coaching over the last couple of months, um, because they want to join orchestras just to have something to work for, and that's been very cool. I've actually enjoyed that very much. So I've been playing through orchestral repertoire every week, 1 or 2 pieces. I do. I'm a teacher, and that's basically how I earn a living, is by teaching. I teach um, I teach on Preply, and I also teach privately. I just do my own thing. Um, and I have also made some teaching videos. I have a set of teaching videos that I have uploaded to YouTube, but they're private. Um, and I'd be willing, anybody that's listening right now, if you want to give them a try for um, at least the first video, I would be willing to give you the link to the first video, uh, just to get some feedback as well. But I hope it's helpful. It's kind of my first attempt at creating a series of teaching videos, and I did that about a year ago. And I just haven't been promoting them very much, so nobody has watched them. So you could be the first ones. I actually wouldn't mind doing that because they're just sitting there doing nothing, and I figure maybe somebody can glean something out of them. There's certainly good information because I'll be the first one to say that everything that I teach has been taught to me, and I'm just trying to put it in words that make sense to me, or words that I've noticed over the years make sense to my own students as I teach. So I try to keep a mental database of what I've said and try to remember how I said them and express them in those teaching videos. Yeah, so it'd be great. I have room for more students. I'm in Asia, so anybody in Asia, of course, that probably works better. But I have students from South America. I have students from Western Europe, Eastern Europe. I have students from the Middle East. I have students from America. I think, oh, and Australia just joined someone from there. So the only place left really is Africa. Don't have any students from there yet. So yeah, I have students all over the world. And if you're interested, just drop me a message. Um, you can look me up on Preply. I have a little introduction video there. about how I think about teaching. It's a it's a little outdated, I guess, because I made that video 2.5, almost 3 years ago now. No, 2.5 years ago. And I think I've updated my thinking about teaching, but it's mostly the same. It's usually just little things. Great, excellent. Appreciate that. Otherwise, you can go to my Patreon, and there Patreon did something really cool recently, and that is you don't have to be a member anymore of any creator's accounts, but you can still purchase things from their shop. I mean, you can just go around there if you think, oh, that would be a good thing for me. You can purchase it, and that'd be great for me, of course. But I just think it's really cool that you don't have to be a member to purchase digital downloads or access to certain things. And there, actually, you can send me a message. You can become a non-paying member, and I think you can still send me messages if I understand it correctly. Private messages. What else was I going to say? I'm terrible at plugging my own stuff, even though that's what you have to do if you want to get the word out. My Patreon is there, and it's kind of just floating along because I'm not really good at promoting myself. But I do have a number of items in the shop that are, I think, really good for students at the earlier stages, or even like a little bit later, maybe intermediate stage, who just never learned how to relax or how to approach practice. And if you're really interested in playing more accurately, a little bit more relaxed, in a relaxed manner, and get to know the fingerboard a little bit better, and how the fingers function. There's, I think, 2 products there that would be very interesting for that particular instance. One is my 20 set video. Yes, you heard that right, 20 videos. And don't be scared by it. It's actually quite repetitive. It just utilizes the 20 pieces in Hugo Schlemmüller's Opus 19. In IMSLP, it's only in German. The title is only in German. Die allerersten Vortragsstückchen für den jungen Cellisten, I think is how it's said. But in English, I think it can be translated pretty accurately to the very first pieces for the young cellist, I believe. Anyway, I use all 20 of those duets, just as a basis for not only teaching these elements, but working the cellist from baseline open strings up to all 4 fingers across all 4 strings, using even slurred notes, up to 4 notes slurred, and crossing strings and arpeggios and all that. And I think that's very, very useful. Just without any of my commentary or annotations. So there you can get a PDF with annotations, but also I have a set of 20 videos that go along with it. I look more like a bassist. Do you mean like double bass? It must be the camera. It's adding weight. It's adding pudginess to me. I have only tried playing the double bass a couple times in my life. And to be honest, it's really interesting, but I don't have any desire to play it whatsoever. I think it's a really fantastic instrument. It's very, very fun to watch people get around and and play it, but it's holds no interest to me. Um, I do, however, like piano a lot, and I do try to tootle around on that. I'm not super proficient, but I can do basic things and accompany my students on easier stuff, or at least play one hand at a time for harder music. Um, I'm primarily a cellist. I have a piano. Yeah, it's an electronic keyboard. I don't have an analog. I don't have a proper upright or anything like that. Boy, if I could have even a 5 foot grand in my place, that would be awesome. Would love it. I have been able to experience the viola da gamba. I think on 2 or 3 occasions, and I wish I had one. That's one instrument that I wish I had in my possession, because I would play it. I would practice it. I think it sounds beautiful, and the fact that you basically don't have to shift all that much to get a plethora of different pitches is a fantastic element. Plus, you can basically accompany yourself. It's very much like a lute in many regards because of having 6 strings. So you can, and they're tightly um, tuned. They're tuned in thirds and fourths rather than all fifths. Yeah, that would be a lot of fun. So, how does it go? Something like this. Something like that. Yeah. Now, for the last part, I actually have to get going very soon. For the last part, I just wanted to play some music that I'm working on to present on my YouTube channel. And if you haven't been following me for very long, for the last 3 years, I've been doing mostly what I'm calling forgotten cello music. And that is kind of a broad term just to say that really not very many people are playing it. So it can literally be, oh, I can't find any recordings on YouTube and I'll be the first one, which happens from time to time. Not too awful often, but you can't find any major performers playing basically a lot of this so-called forgotten cello music. There was one time that I watched Stephen Isserlis, perform a fascinating concert at Wigmore Hall about 2 years ago, in which he played a Joseph Holman, what was it called? Fantasy on the Carmen theme by Bizet. I mean, I was dumbstruck because I didn't think that Holman was on anybody's radar, let alone this major performer. So that was just, wow. I was really happy. I actually I tried to contact him on Facebook, and if I remember right, he did write a comment back. And it was just really fun because, yeah, I think only 2 months prior to that, I had uploaded on my channel here 4 short pieces by Holman. And I don't remember all the titles of the pieces. I think one was a mazurka and one was a pourquoi. I think it said why. The title of the thing was why. Pourquoi. So this is what I'm working on right now. This is a preludium, and I'm hoping to work it up enough that I can at least get little snippets of it. This is Gultermann from his Opus 122 Modern Suite. Look it up. I hope everybody looks up some of this Gultermann because it's fun music. That's the prelude from the Modern Suite. Then there's this Romance. And most of these movements are just a page long. It's a nice little thing to play. It's more intermediate level. This is a Trauer March. Trauer March, or Funeral March. My A string sounds very thin right now. Oh, yeah, a lot of shifting. This is definitely not the easier stuff. He wrote some things for easier cello, but this is solidly in the intermediate level. Definitely. There's a lot of shifting, a lot more intricate finger work, bow work, just even in one position. Here's a gavotte. I mean, these are all just very beginnings of the piece. And finally, the Tarantella. This is my favorite one. I have to say it right now. It's my favorite one. For the longest time, I only played, one Tarantella. I only studied one Tarantella in all of the years I took cello lessons. Only the Squire Tarantella was ever on the docket, where there actually are dozens of other Tarantellas that are quite nice. And here's one by Georg Goltermann. And so on and so forth. It's just a really nice little piece. So if you've ever heard the Tarantella by Squire, very fine piece of music, and definitely worth studying. But if you could find other Tarantellas to kind of go along with it so it doesn't seem like such an odd or unusual piece of music for the cello, it's well worth it. And I can think of, in the same level, I can think of at least two more, I think. So there's this Goltermann Tarantella. There's one by Kosman, which is slightly harder. It's definitely higher up most of the time, but it's very cellistic in the way he deals with shifting and notes and everything. Then, of course, there's a Popper Tarantella, which is actually that's not all that difficult, to be quite frank. His Hungarian Rhapsody is way harder, way harder, which I've also played. Very cool piece. Anyway, I really should get going now. Thank you very much, especially today to Dre Sky Party. Thanks for the questions and the sticking around. Really appreciate you sticking around, and I do hope it's helped. And anyway, see you all next time. Thanks for the company. Be looking forward to some uploads. I'm going to upload some short tutorial videos. Some students of mine asked me to make videos, so I decided I'd try to make something for my YouTube channel. So thanks a lot. Bye-bye.